Hi, I'm Sarith, and I enjoy cross-stitch, reading books, and tracking data. So let's combine all those together and make a book quilt. Now this feels really weird to be filming in February since I probably won't be releasing it until I don't know, September, November, something like that. But I actually started working on it, throwing the idea around in my head last year and officially planning it in like January. So this is going to take a while. I test stitch all of my patterns myself, and that's going to take forever for this project. So I wanted to start early. But basically, I wanted to design a book tracker. Now, there's lots of book trackers out there. The most common ones I see are these little, like, bookshelf type tours where they do little tiny books that you color in based on genres or whatever. And I spent a lot of time discussing this with my bookish friends as how we could include things like ratings and cats. Yes? Anyway, I spent a lot of time talking with my bookish friends about how we could customize those to better fit our own reading and to also track things like page count and star ratings to see if there's any like correlation between large books being better, or maybe I just spend more time researching a book when it's large to make sure that I'm going to like it before I invest that time into it. You know, that sort of thing. I had also seen around a lot of crocheters doing crochet book quilts with granny squares using the colors from the cover of the book. Now, my yarn collection is not large enough to do that with. I have very few colors available because I don't crochet as often as I would like, but I do cross stitch, and I have every color in the DMC line, every color in the CXC line, every color in the Cosmo line. I have colors. Good. And I have seen recently a few people cross-stitching crochet granny square using book covers to track their books. One person in particular, Pike, is doing them on plastic canvas and turning them into granny square magnets so that you can put them on your fridge or probably your Bisley cabinet and rearrange them and create a quilt, which is really cute, but still doesn't solve the issue of tracking page counts and ratings and etc. With the bookshelf idea, I thought maybe like the color of the book spine could be the genre, and like, you know, those little stripes that you see on the older books could be like page count, and you could have a little spine design be for the rating or any combination thereof. But it wasn't like the spine of a book doesn't leave me a lot of room to add detail. So putting those two ideas together, we have a book quilt. And by quilts, I don't just mean granny squares, I mean quilting. So I researched a bunch of traditional and or modern quilt square designs, and I pixeled up some quilt squares. Now I stopped at 16 because it's already going to be a pain in the butt to pick out 3 colors each for 16 colors, because I need 3 pinks and 3 reds and 3 oranges and 3 red oranges and 3 yellow oranges and 3 yellows. You get the idea, but I think 16 is sufficient for most people. I did put together a general list of genres, but I highly encourage you to customize this to whatever genres you read most. So pink I have down as romance, mainly because this is slightly heart-shaped. I have red as horror, because red, blood. Red-orange is nonfiction. Orange is historical fiction. Yellow-orange is contemporary. Yellow is poetry. Lime is magical realism. Green is fantasy. Teal is like story collections, like short stories. Blue is like mystery or adventure. Blurple, as I'm calling it, are thrillers. Purple is like literary fiction, or I'm actually going to be using it as folk tales because I read a lot more of those than I do literary fic. But hey. Magenta I have down as graphic novels. The brown I have down as like biographies or memoirs, which you could lump together into nonfiction if you wanted and use that for something else. The dark gray I have as sci-fi because it's slightly shaped if you like turn your head a little bit. And light gray, aka grayscale, I have down as classics because classic movies are grayscale. It makes look. I'm just arbitrarily assigning genres, but you can of course customize these. You don't read a lot of poetry, swap it out for something that you do read that I didn't cover here. Put your biographies into the nonfiction category and use that for something else. Dystopian fiction, I don't know. Don't read classics, swap it out for new genres coming out, like lit RPG is relatively new. You could shove that under fantasy, but if you read a lot of it, you might want to do your own thing. Don't read graphic novels, swap it out for, I don't know, YA or middle grade novels. Pick whatever colors and genres speak most to you. If you think fantasy is more purple, then swap those two. I don't care. This is entirely up to you. I'm just giving you the basics and what I plan to be using. And then I broke it down to have a little border to do page count. So I figured like a light gray for shorter, like short stories. So like under 200 pages. A like medium or light gray for 200 to 300 pages, so novellas. A darker gray for 300 to 400 pages, a even darker gray for 400 or more pages, and maybe black if you get 500 or 600 and above, because those exist. I read Wind and Truth this year. I'm going to cap mine at 400 plus pages, because I don't read a lot of books over 500 anyway, but if you do, you can of course change that range. The other thing I wanted to include was star ratings. And originally, I had planned to do my star ratings as like little stars. So, like a simple star, this might be 1 star, that might be 2 stars, and then like that might be 3 stars, and so forth, and just complicating stars as we go. But it looked way too busy and it was hard to really tell at a glance what they were. So I ended up with this pip system. So on the borders, we have the ratings. Now the problem there is that when I originally had these quilt blocks all squared up next to each other, they just blended together and felt entirely too busy, especially when you had ones that didn't match up. Just that's going to be the most normal. And then I tried just doing like the top and bottom. I tried just doing like one of the sides, but I think I liked all 4 sides the best personally. You can of course customize it. Again, the whole point of this is customizing. So if you wanted only the bottoms of your squares or only the tops and bottoms of your squares to have ratings, you could do that, or maybe alternate. So these have the tops, this has the sides, top, side, etc. That could look cool. What would that look like? Let me do that real quick. And these are just example ratings I put down. It's not based on anything. Like, I hope you don't get a lot of 1 stars, but maybe you do. But see, you could do that, so that way they don't, like if you wanted to not have the space between the quilt blocks, you could and like alternate which ones. That way there's no rating that runs up against a different rating. Does that make sense? So that's an option. Again, I liked all 4 sides having the rating, but that does mean I want to put space between the blocks. The other benefit of putting space between the blocks is because if you don't want to stitch a rainbow quilt, which I mean, why wouldn't you? You could instead use the cover colors of your book, and that gets really patchworky really fast. So by having the fabric color in between the stitches, it kind of ties them all together, and you could stitch the in between if the texture difference bothers you, but you don't have to. And if you wanted to, for example, stitch this on white, you could do that and it would be fine. If you wanted to stitch it on, whatever your favorite color is, do that. I'm going with black because I do enjoy the stark contrast of black, which is another reason why I'm not doing black borders for 500 plus page books. I'm sticking with the dark gray, which does stand out sufficiently on black since most black fabric is not black, it's a dark gray, Another thing you could do is if you don't track your star ratings, you could leave those off and just have the page counts. If you don't care about page counts, leave those off, That's entirely up to you. But this was my idea. And then I put together a little test because despite it being February, I'm already 18 books behind, which is why I want to get this started soon. So I put together the first 16 books I read this year as an example of what my quilt would look like. And if you don't read a ton of books in a year, maybe this is your entire quilt. Maybe you just do a 4x4 square, and maybe that takes you the entire year. That's fine too. It's still cool. Maybe you do 5x5 if you read around 25 books a year. I plan to do the first 100 books that I read in a year. That makes it a solid 10x10 square. And you could use that as a 100-book challenge. It doesn't have to be in a single year. You could continue to stitch it for as many years as it takes you to get to 100 books. But I figured a 10x10 square is a nice solid number, or even, like I said, a 5x5 square if you don't read as much. If you wanted to stitch everything you read in a year, the problem that I would consider is, do you stitch an exact number of books? Like, do you read a number of books divisible by 10? Because if not, then you're gonna have like this, maybe you have a quilt that, you got so far and then you just were 2 books shy of making a perfect square, and then what? So instead, I recommend just setting yourself a square goal and reading to that. But again, up to you. If you don't mind it tapering off at the bottom, do that. The other thing, like I said, is if you want, instead of doing the rainbow colors, you could do the cover colors. Now here's again the example for the first 16 books I read this year, and you can see it's a lot busier. I have 2 2-stars already, which is not great, but here we are. A couple of 3-stars. Not really any 5-stars yet. There's Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear by Shannon McGuire, which was almost guaranteed to be a 5-star. Wind and Truth, I ended up rating a 4-star. I did expect that to be a 5-star, but, it happens. I tried to pick, again, a dark, medium, and light value from each of the covers, and some of them are a little bit harder to tell. Like, Cage of Souls is entirely green, really. But I needed a dark green, a medium green, a light green, etc. That's my plan. I'm going to rearrange this onto a 10x10 grid, and will only be a row and a half in. Hopefully, I get a chance to get that started soon. Now that I've kind of explained the pattern, I'm gonna go start stitching it, and I'll check back in with you. I lied. It is now March, and I'm now 33 books behind. And I have 2 more that are half done, so 35 books basically behind. I did get some stitching done. I started doing just the borders. So I still haven't decided if I'm going to do the rainbow or the cover colors. Excuse the bare Q-snap. I still haven't made a Q-snap cozy for my larger one, and I wanted to not have to move this very often. I can fit about 7 before I need to move the Q-snap, so I'll probably stitch this section and then move over and do the last 3 of each row. But I have most of the borders in this section done. You can see at least that I did get some shorter stories read, and I have some novellas over here, but most of them are going to be in this 300 to 400 range. I have a couple of 5-stars in there, but I have not stitched stars on yet, and I haven't done any actual squares. Hopefully I can get some stitching in soon so that we can see what that starts to look like. In the meantime, I did mock up what my quilt currently looks like as far as my genres. So you'll see I added a few things I didn't have before. So I have a graphic novel, a poetry book, a thriller, a mystery, a classic, a contemporary, not ones that I read often, so you probably won't see them very much in this, but I still don't have any teal squares. And one other, what's the other one? Magical realism. I did technically read a magical realism book, but I categorized it as a classic because it was 100 Years of Solitude. There will probably be other magical realism books that I read this year, but probably not very many classics, so I decided to categorize it as classic. And that's the thing with a lot of these, you can fit them into multiple categories, but in order to keep a varied quilt, I went with the rarer of the two categories when possible, and then I mocked up what it would look like if I did the cover colors. So again, it's getting even busier. Lots of colors, and let's zoom in a little bit. I'm at 34 books, actually. I miscounted. A good chunk of the way in, over a third of the way into this 100 square quilt. And I haven't started stitching any of them. Wonderful. So here we are. I'm gonna check back in April, I guess, and see how much progress I made. It is now April, and it is surprisingly cold out. It's been freezing the last few days, so back in my cardigan. But I did want to do an update real quick. I have now stitched 22 of my books and have started in on the pips for the next row. Unfortunately, I've also gotten up to 61 books read, so I'm still 39 behind. I am trying to catch up. Don't know if that's going to happen. I'm going to stop at 100, so I will catch up eventually and well before the end of the year, but here's where I'm at now. I think my favorite is this one for Hex. It's very nice green and purple. And then this purple sci-fi one is Skyward. That one was really nice. Overall, I am liking how this is turning out. And I'm excited to see how far I can get before May. Because I have a few other large projects that I need to be working on. And I don't know if I'll have as much time to devote to this. I'm gonna get to the end of this row, and then I need to switch this Q-snap to another project for a little while. So hopefully I have an update in May. If not, I'll see you in another second or two. It is now mid-May. The weather's finally warming up a bit. That's nice. I was able to plant things outside. And I got this cool sewing basket for my birthday. But here's progress. Open that. I now have 31 a little bit stitched. The problem being I'm now at 86 books read, so I don't even have all of the squares filled in yet. I'm making progress. I don't think I'm catching up anytime soon. I think I read too much for this to work out as a stitch as you go type project, unless I was not doing as many other things as I've been doing. Because keep in mind, the reason that I can't put as much love into this is that I also put out 2 Patreon patterns every month, sometimes a third, sometimes a freebie, sometimes it's a larger project, sometimes it's a smaller, and then also trying to do sticker stuff, and yeah, there's only so much time in the day I can devote to this. But I think this would be great for people who read maybe just a few books a month. It could just be a cute little project for the year. You definitely do not need to do a full 10 by 10 grid. Again, you could do just a 5 by 5 and do 25. You can just see how many you end up needing. But yeah, I am making progress. I really like this one for some reason. It's not the coolest colors, and it was a terrible book, but I like the how the design comes out in I did finally have, what is that, a mystery and a poetry book. I don't read a lot of poetry, but I needed a poetry book for a challenge on Storygraph, so that ended up happening. You know, what else to say about this? I'll see you back in June, I guess. It's June, and I have a date for you. I'm up to, what is that, 43 and a little bit. And I got all of the blocks stitched in, so we have all of the outlines at least, and most of the stars. Slowly filling this in. I think I calculated that I need to do at least 5 a week to get this done in order to release in November. But yeah. As far as my actual reading, I'm at 114 books read so far. Again, I'm stopping the stitch at 100, but I'm well past that in reading now. So now it's just a matter of playing catch up. Got a few favorites, like We Used to Live Here. That was a good book, and I like how the blue and white look together. You have any other new favorites? Oh, Middle Game looks kind of cool because it's like a white and gray, black and white patch. You have any updates? No? Okay. I will see you guys in July then. Alright, it is now July 10th, I had to check. And this is where we're at. We're at, what, 57? Let me take off the snaps partially so that you can see the full thing so far. So we're over halfway. Some of my favorites include this one. This is the Atlas Paradox, and this blue one, which is Divine Misfortune. Ones I did not like as much. This one doesn't have as much contrast as I would like. I believe that is the Lock and Key Volume 1, Welcome to Lovecraft. But the colors did not turn out as much as I'd like. They just kind of blend together, but that's okay. Yeah, so we have 43 to go. I have gone ahead and done all of the boxes. And I've done most of the stars. I only have like a few down here to fill in. So we need to speed things up because this last one, which is Sword of Destiny, The Witcher Book 2, I finished on April 4th. So that's how far behind I am. 3 months of books. This is 3 months of books. Actually, no, this is like a month of books. 2 months. Yeah, because I got to my 100th book in June, which is where I'm stopping this project, so that it's a 10 by 10 grid. But all that being said, I'm making okay progress. I'm hoping to make a lot more progress this month. I keep saying that, and it keeps not happening, but I really need to get this done. So I will see you next month, or in about a second. Okay, it is August 1st, and I am so close to being done. I hyper-focused this month. I've got 12 books to go, not much longer now, so I should be done by the end of the month. I did order some stretcher bars so I can get this framed once it's done, and then I just gotta figure out how to take pictures of it because this will not fit on my photo table, but that's okay. Some of my favorites, let's see, since last time, I don't know. I kind of like the blues in the deep here. And when I say favorites, I mean the color combinations, not necessarily the books, because you can see what I rated the books. This was only a 3, but I really like how the colors work together with that. Flatland looks pretty cool as well because the black, white, and gold. Yeah, so not much longer now. I am realizing that this was a much larger endeavor than I had originally anticipated, so again, only take on the full 100 squares if you've got a lot of free time. But I really like how it's turning out. It looks really cool, especially at a distance when all the colors kind of start to blend together and you can see some patterns forming. So I will get back to work on this so we can get this done, and the next time you see it, it should be finished. It's a week later. It is August 7th, and I have finished stitching.
is that I was able to do that last 12 squares in like a week, and that's because I fell down the stairs, injured my knee, and had time off work to do nothing but stitch. Not the best situation, but at least I got some stitching done. I did get my stretcher bars, so they're gonna be framed on here. But I don't want to do a whole bunch of standing and stapling and stuff right now, so that's gonna have to wait. But this is done, and it's ironed, and it's all pretty, and it's off the Q-snap, and I can use that for another project. This took 142 hours, y'all. I counted every single one of them, which averaged out to, what, an hour and a half per square? Fair warning. And I stitch pretty fast, so at least the stitching is done, and I can focus on some of my other projects. But we're gonna give it another week or two until my knee feels better so I can frame it. And then I'll check back in. Alrighty, so we have our finished stitch freshly ironed and ready to go. It is looking great. Let's flip this over. And I've already assembled my stretcher bars. I'm gonna put it on here and spend some time getting this as well lined up as I can based on the back here. I'm getting it as close up to the squares as I can. This side doesn't have a ton of extra room. I didn't exactly center this on the fabric, but hey, we'll work with what we got. I've got my staple gun here, and I'm gonna mute and play some pleasant music over me being loud with a staple gun at midnight while my husband's trying to sleep. That's fine. He's used to it. Alright, we will start on either end. I'm going to be working roughly the middle over here. I'll start with this thin side since there's not as much to work with. I do actually have a tutorial on my channel on how I do these stretch canvases if you'd like to see me actually do one. And then I'm going to use fray check to do a pass just so that this fabric doesn't continue fraying on the frame. Alright, we have a canvas. Let's go look at the final result. Alrighty, so it is now nearly September and we are finally done with the finished canvas. And you can rotate it and no one will ever know whether it's upside down or not. It doesn't matter, only you will know probably. I meant to sign it and I might still do that just to make it clear which way is the bottom. And by sign it, I'll stitch a little back stitch signature to show like the year and stuff. It's going to be harder to stitch it now that it's already on the frame, but it's still doable. But yeah, here we go. The first 100 books I read in 2025. I will also post on screen what it would have looked like if I did this in the rainbow colors that I suggest in my pattern. So that's an option. I will also include what my quilt would have looked like if I continued adding to it up until September, because I'm at 158 books right now. And I still got plenty of months to go, so we probably could have made a second one. But I'm not gonna, because that would be ridiculous. This already took 142 hours to stitch. And that's not counting the amount of time that I spent picking colors for each square. Let's not think about it. The average cross stitch that I do for my shop usually ranges like 15 hours, sometimes 20, 25 if it's a particularly large one, but 142. Definitely a passion project. Definitely not getting my money's back for that. But it's going in my library. I love it. And it's a very cool art piece that people can ask about. I will post a link down below to where you can find this pattern if you would like to make one yourself based on your reading habits. I will also link to the tutorial on how I stretched it into a canvas, because this is a fun little finish. Oh, listen to that. The millennial urge to tap on things while recording. I don't know, but yeah. The tutorial on how I stretched this into a canvas. Is it perfectly straight? No, I tried, but at a distance you can't tell. It's fine. Nobody's gonna care. Whether you use my pattern or find another one or design your own, tracking books can be a fun way to do it. You could also track other things. Like if you turn this into a temperature tracker somehow, that would be cool. I would not want to do 365 squares. 100 was enough, thank you. Oh, and let me show you the back. Looks pretty cool. I love seeing the backs of cross-stitch projects. I don't care how messy they are. The messier the better, because this is the real art. Because you could do this exact same cross stitch and it would look the same on the front and completely different on the back, because the different paths and how you do your stitches, and oh, I love it. They're so special. I don't care if you think they look messy. That's why they're special. I mean, if you want to hide them, that's entirely up to you, and it's a valid option, but why? Show your backs. Thanks for watching through this insane video. I hope you enjoyed the ride, and I hope you see you around next time. I do have another, yeah, I have at least one more bookish pattern for the year planned, and then who knows what next year will bring. Always something. Whatever you decide to do, though, keep creating. I feel like this entire video is just a documentary of how my hair grows and fades over time. And it's done!
Hi, I'm Sarithra, and I enjoy cross-stitching, reading books, and not finishing my sentences.